Nuclear power is the third most common energy source in the world, right behind fossil fuels and hydropower. Almost 11% of the world depends on the splitting of the atom, the same energy used to give nuclear weapons such destructive force. But how can we determine a country's desire to utilize the energy source that powers 1/10 of the world and the impacts of the country's decisions of how to use nuclear power? Nuclear power works by firstly, uranium fuel is loaded up into the reactor. In the heart of the reactor or the core, atoms split apart and release heat energy, producing neutrons and splitting other atoms. Control rods can be raised or lowered into the reactor to soak up neutrons and slow down or speed up the chain reaction. Water is pumped through the reactor to collect the heat energy that the chain reaction produces. It constantly flows around a closed route linking the reactor with the heat exchanger. Inside the heat exchanger, the water from the reactor gives up its energy to cooler water, flowing in another closed loop, turning it into steam. Using two unconnected loops of water and the heat exchanger helps to keep water contaminated with radioactivity, safely contained in one place and well away from most of the equipment in the plant. The steam from the heat exchanger is piped to a turbine. As the steam blows past the turbine's vanes, they spin around. The spinning turbine is connected to an electricity generator and makes that spin too. The generator produces electricity that flows out to the power grid and to our homes, shops, offices, and factories. Politics is a major factor in the production of most energy sources, whether the research of new forms of energy or the commissioning of privately owned power plants. However, politics is more heavily involved with nuclear power, as nuclear power can be an extremely dangerous source of energy. Nuclear power has had such a major impact on politics that most countries that have been able to create nuclear power have put up whole government sectors to govern the use of the energy. One example is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or the NRC in the USA. They inspect and commission all nuclear power plants, even if they are privately owned, as no one wants a nuclear meltdown and an ensuing fallout. However, the main reason that there are government sectors focused on nuclear energy is to calm people's nerves. Nuclear energy was, and still is, a heavily debated topic among the community. Nuclear energy used to be portrayed as dangerous because of its origins with nuclear weapons, and also what the media posted about what would happen if a nuclear power plant would fail. The Chernobyl disaster certainly did not help nuclear power's case. However, if you look at the statistics today, not only is nuclear energy a wonder energy that has no emissions and could cope with baseload very well, it also has the least amount of deaths per energy unit generated per year. These death rates include Fukushima, 3 Mile Island, and Chernobyl. Permanent countries' desire to wield nuclear power is mostly based on the community mindset of that country or their governmental system. In most countries that have nuclear energy, the community knows about climate change emissions and the fact that nuclear energy is clean and sustainable. Yet they also know that when a meltdown occurs, the fallout zone will be unlivable for almost half a century. This is half the reason that most countries that have nuclear power plants don't depend on them fully. But also nuclear power plants can be the most expensive power plants to build, and other energy source power plants are much cheaper to make and run. But there are also countries that do not give their community a choice and build power plants to find out the more weaponized version of the power, or simply because nuclear power plants are more reliable. North Korea is a good example of this. To determine a country's desire to utilize nuclear power, you'd have to look at the community mindset and the country's governmental system. Nuclear power is impacting and has impacted our whole community because any decision to utilize nuclear power impacts the whole world because of the unknown amount of power that nuclear power holds and has held.